Welcome back to Beyond the Woo, where we talk demystifying psychedelics. And today we're going to talk about what it's like to transition people off of psychotropic medication using psychedelic medicine. So, hi, Jennie.
Hi.
I'm so excited that we're talking about this today. This comes up in our practice all the time. Our practice has gotten pretty good at this, actually. And we've had a lot of really interesting cases where people who once were completely dependent on psychotropic medication, so things like Paxil and Wellbutrin and, Seroquel, those kinds of meds. And now some of our patients aren't on any meds at all, right?
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it really, for me, has become pretty much a three-prong approach. First of all, we can't, as therapists, advise anyone to get off of their medication. So we have in our practice a psychiatrist, we have nurse practitioners. They're managing their medications and they're working to deprescribe them. So you got to have that medical provider on your team that you're working with. So that's one. Two, we need to look at what I call kind of like lifestyle factors that are supportive of this. And that's going to be, what is your diet like? What's your supplements like? What's your physical exercise like? And what does your community look like? Do you have good community support? So these are really important, that we got to have your lifestyle factors figured out. And then three, we can go into working with medicine. And here in California, of course, our only legal psychedelic that we can work with, which is not a classical psychedelic, it is ketamine, a dissociative, really. We can use that and slowly work with our medical team to taper clients down off these medications.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. You reminded me of something too. When I was in graduate school, in our psychopharm class, we were, psychopharmacology, everybody's terrified of the psychopharm class because you have to learn all these meds and what they do. And, we know that we're not going to prescribe, but we still have to know them well enough so that when our clients come in or they've taken too much of something, or we can answer a question or refer them back to their psychiatrist. The very first day of the class, the professor got up there and he was a neuropsychopharmacologist. Brilliant, brilliant man. And he said, before you recommend anybody to psychiatry for a med workup, make sure their sleep is regulated. Because sleep is the great regulator. And if somebody's not sleeping, it doesn't matter what medicine you give them. Nothing's going to work.
It's true. I forgot that one in the lifestyle factor. What is their sleep like?
Yeah.
So great that you added that in.
Yeah. But let's talk about it a little bit though, because you and I both shared cases where we have talked about with our psychiatrists, with our nurse practitioners, like, okay, this person seems to be doing better post ketamine. What do we want to do in terms of their, they're going to now go back on their meds that they might have tapered off of or down a little bit in order to do the ketamine treatment. So now how have you talked to people about what changes after a ketamine treatment, for example?
Yeah. So, it can vary so much. And so I think really knowing that you need to individualize this based on each individual person, and just really getting an idea of what their journey has looked like as far as with their medication journey. If they've been on antidepressants for 20 years and they really have had that small window of like emotional, capacity, we really have to also consider that we're going to do a very slow taper. So our medical team will really work slowly to taper someone down off of medications. Maybe it could take 6 months or a year before we taper off if you've been on psychotropic meds for so long, because we also want to support you during that period of time of helping you expand your emotional capacity. So yes, maybe you've done some ketamine, you've had some really good insights, you've reorganized your ego structure in a lot of ways, but at the same time, it's been a long time since you've really had a large range. And so to be able to go from, having this much emotional range to now I'm feeling all this can be really overwhelming to someone.
So important to talk about, because what you're describing is almost like a new capability that someone is now, it's almost like you haven't, you've never felt your toes before. And now you can not only feel your toes, you feel your knee and everything else. And it's like your leg's alive. And you're like, I didn't know I had a leg before. Right. Like, so yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I have so many clients that have been anxious about feeling anxious,
Yeah.
and really helping them kind of reframe that and
Hmm.
help them maybe also understand that sometimes anxiety is adjacent to actually positive, pleasant
Yeah.
emotions, excitement, fascination, curiosity,
Curiosity.
right?
Yeah.
And so just because I'm feeling this feeling that
Hmm.
might be similar or
Oh,
adjacent to
yeah.
anxiety, I may not be experiencing anxiety.
I might
And
be
what I
excited.
might be excited. I might be like, wow, the world looks new to me. It's not muted because I feel like so many of my clients say that colors look brighter, food tastes different, interactions with individuals is different.
It's so interesting to hear you say it in that language. I haven't thought about it like that, but I think that is it's such an important insight. Like, what do you do when suddenly you can see deeper, feel deeper, like understand, like it's like being a newborn or something. Like you have all this new sensation. What do you do with it? And if you don't know what to do with it, it's kind of like you can be overwhelmed. You can be even anxious about feeling good. Like,
Wow.
it's so fascinating to think about how well then okay, so let's talk about it in terms of the tapering. Like if you're trying to help someone make sure that they do that safely, what is the first indicator for you that you as the therapist like, oh, this person needs a little more management or support?
So a lot of times we're talking about how do they manage their emotions?
Mm.
Who supports them when maybe I'm having a really difficult day?
Mhm.
Do they have the support systems there to be able to come alongside them? And a support system that can come alongside them that is supportive of this idea of deprescribing, that they're not going to say
Mm.
like, "Oh, you should go get your pills." Why don't you get your pills? Because if you don't have that proper support system, it really is difficult to deprescribe because you're going to go through a range of emotions and feelings. Um, and that's normal. And you have to have support through that. And you have to have a really good therapeutic frame. So when my clients are going through deprescribing, I'm not that traditional therapist that's like 5 p.m., peace out. You know, you won't get me till tomorrow, or it's Friday and you're not going to get me till tomorrow. So I really need to be able to be there for my clients and support them,
Mhm.
and be able to make sure that the medical team is also there to support them. So, for example, some of these medications can be really difficult on the withdrawal symptom deprescribing, even if we go slow. So, we may
Mm.
need to have the medical team do some IV treatments to help support and reduce some of these withdrawal symptoms. And so, really looking for clients who are ready and
Mhm.
prepared that there's going to be a process to this.
Right.
It's might be up and down. I might go through a range of symptoms and feelings, and to know that they can reach out to me,
Mm.
in
Mhm.
a way that is therapeutic and beneficial,
Mhm.
not overly like, "Oh my gosh, Jenny, you gotta like help me, help me, help me."
Right.
I want them to have the capacity to know that they can trust themselves, that they do have
Yeah.
the skills. So if I'm hearing that they're talking about like, "Hey, this week it
Mhm.
was difficult for me, but I actually remembered I could do this or I could get through this." So they're actually giving me information to tell me, "Oh, I have the window available to me to like expand my capacity."
That is actually quite beautiful when you think about it, right? Like I think that there's this experience that I've been trying to figure out how to put into words, and I think you just did a really good job of helping me understand it a little better, where clients sometimes believe that the goal of therapy is to not feel as much.
Mm,
And it's actually the opposite. It's to make it safe to feel more.
mm,
And what I think I hear you describing is that as we're taking them into that place of like, no, 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 not only do we want you to feel more, we want it to be safe, we want you to have the full range of human experience. But if they always think that they're supposed to be more locked down and they're most supposed to be more together, like I mean, is there something that happens in the deep prescribing journey where they might have to change a medication to get off of one or something? Like, is there something like, can you think of a
Oh,
case or?
absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I've had clients that were on 2 or 3 different antidepressants
Mhm.
or mood stabilizers. And so during that time, they may actually need to go on something that can kind of support the anxiety
Mhm.
system, not something that would be like a Valium or a Xanax,
Mhm.
because we know there's other
Yeah.
issues with benzodiazepines, but something that can help regulate the nervous system a little bit as they're going through this. Or we might, you know, take them off a more difficult antidepressant to come off of, but support them by an antidepressant that we know can be a little bit easier when we're actually ready to deprescribe. So the medical team really kind of looks at that, and
Yeah.
depending on what clients are on, and especially because different antidepressants are working on different things. So you may have
Mhm.
an antidepressant that's really working on dopamine and norepinephrine
Mhm.
and serotonin, or you might just have a serotonin only. So really working with the psychiatric team to figure out, okay, do we need to prescribe something else while we're taking off of this and then work on taking this
Mhm.
down? What supplements do we need to be put in place? And
Mhm.
for us, really a lot of times that's the key, is some supplements that really are supporting
Yeah.
the system, and the gut,
Yeah, the gut.
because the gut is so important, really, that gut brain axis. We don't talk enough about that.
So it's music to my ears because it's a nerdy science girl. Like half of the serotonin that we need that we use in our body, and that's not just brain, it's also heart, comes from the gut.
Hmm.
And there's all this new research that the serotonin producing parts of our gut system is actually in communication with the brain and the heart. Like it's kind of nuts
It
when you
really
think
is.
about it. Like it's like, wait, what? Like, so that gut feeling is real. It's
Hmm.
a cascade of serotonin typically. But okay, so the gut brain axis, like what kind of things are important to support that? Like what would you
Yeah, so one
think?
of our favorite go-to is inositol,
Mhm.
which used to be considered a vitamin B. It got downgraded somewhere along the line,
Okay.
and but it's actually really important to not only help with just the gut alignment of the serotonin,
Mhm.
but also the brain as well. It's kind of helping with the myelation of your neurons and really helping strengthen what's happening for the brain.
Yeah, so the myelin is the sheath
Hmm.
around those neurons, and if it's strained or if it's not being, if it's not coming back to, strength or have enough myelin sheath around your neurons, that you can actually get inflammation.
Mhm.
And inflammation is also another really dangerous thing that happens in the
Mhm.
body with neurons and brain structure and so yeah, inflammation is something we want to not have if we
Yeah,
can help it, right?
absolutely. And speaking of inflammation,
Mhm.
individuals, like if they've been struggling with substance use disorder in the
Mm,
past, we know that they probably do have some possible inflammation. So they may actually prescribe something like naltrexone
mm,
to actually help reduce brain inflammation, also curb any, cravings that they might have for the
mhm.
substance use. Because so many people will turn to naturally medicating oneself,
Right.
and so we really want to support them not turning to that. And then things like N-acetylcysteine, which is also really helpful for
Mhm.
brain function, especially for anxiety. I have just seen tremendous benefits for individuals who have, especially OCD,
Mm.
but even anxiety. Getting on N-acetylcysteine, NAC, has been really a powerful supportive to the system in helping reduce the anxiety, which there's going to be anxiety as we start to withdraw
Sure.
this medication.
But I love the thing that you were saying earlier about it maybe as an indicator that you're actually feeling more,
Hmm.
not necessarily that you're in some sort of crisis, right?
Right. Well, a lot of times, when, I started off working with teenagers and children in
Mm-hmm.
the field. And so back then, I really tried to come up with a fun way to help them understand emotions. And I would talk about the sunnies and the gloomies. But they're both our friends,
Mm-hmm.
and so I was kind of like the early Inside Out, almost in a sense, like characters. I
Yeah.
actually have like an animation that I had one of my daughter's friends draw for me
Mm-hmm.
that was like the gloomies and the sunnies.
Mm-hmm.
They can all be friends,
Mm-hmm.
that these unpleasant feelings are okay. And how can we welcome them in and understand it's information,
Right.
right? Feelings is information, emotions are information. And just because they maybe are not as pleasant doesn't mean they're any less valid. And so, really helping people understand that and grasp that so that part of
Mm-hmm.
this journey, they're having a new relationship with what I would call as the gloomies.
Right. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love it so much. So thinking about it from the perspective of like an actual, if you have an ideal case that you would share, like, because I've had a couple people not completely deprescribed, but I've had people who've changed and are taking a whole lot less
Mhm.
because of doing psychedelic medicine, ketamine primarily. So I'm curious, what's a memorable one for you? What's one of the most maybe effective ones that you've seen?
I would say probably my second client that I had, and she was young, in her 20s, had been put on antidepressants when she was 11 years
Oh my
old.
gosh.
Had lost her mother,
Mm-hmm.
and so was rightly so very sad. And her dad's solution was to get her medicated. So at 11, she had gone on antidepressants. Then she hit puberty and was having a lot of PMS symptoms. And
Mm.
dad's solution was to get her more medicated. So then
Oh
she
my
got on a
gosh.
mood stabilizer. So she was on an antidepressant for what was probably just regular
Grief.
grief.
Yeah.
And yes, antidepressants can be helpful during a grief cycle, but maybe just supportive for a period of time. And then she was put on a mood stabilizer for a natural girl experience of puberty. And
Mm-hmm.
so here she was heavily medicated. She had no range of emotion. She was so flat when she came into my office, but here she was trying to work in the entertainment industry,
Mm.
which let's face it, you got to be on screen. I
Right.
need to have some emotion. I need to be, and
Right.
she was really struggling because a lot of times it wasn't reading on camera for her or on stage the range of emotion that she
Right.
wanted.
Oh
She
my
knew
goodness.
that she was too muted, but she was so anxious because she had tried multiple times to reduce her medication and she really fell into deep depressive episodes.
Mm.
So, one, we had to work on reprocessing this trauma of losing a mother at a young age.
Mhm.
And so often when I'm working with clients, we really look at what are the factors that might be fueling some of the depression?
Right.
Is there trauma there? Is there shame? Is there guilt? Is there unresolved grief? Is there unresolved anger and
Mhm.
resentment that's living in your system?
Mhm.
So we worked very thoughtfully for about 3 to 4 months to process some of that grief. And then we got her in, got her supported with the supplements. And then we started the ketamine.
Mm.
And we did a series of about 10 ketamine sessions over about a 3-month window.
Mm.
And after that, we slowly began to reduce her medication. And then about 6 months later, we were about halfway off of her medications, and we did a couple more ketamine
Mhm.
sessions in there. And so it was very slow, very thoughtful. And it was about a year and a half long process before she was fully deprescribed. And now she's doing great. She sends me postcards when she travels outside the country, which is so much fun because she's, in her late 20s now, early
Mhm.
30s, I think. The first time I got a postcard from her, I'm like, what is this? I didn't know that 20-year-olds knew what postcards were still. And she has a little stamp that she got
Mm.
that's like the sunnies and the gloomies.
Aw.
So she made her own version of it. And she's like, I've taken my sunnies and my gloomies with me to Portugal. I just wanted to let you know all is well.
Oh
And
my
it's just so
gosh.
cute and so beautiful. And she stayed, on the supplements. She's also eating a keto-based diet, which there's a wonderful book out there called Brain Energy. This
Mm.
is a book I try to get all clients to read. And it really talks about some of these supportive factors that you can do in your diet also to give your brain energy.
Yes, that's awesome. So I want to go back. I want to know more about the brain energy in a second, but I also want to go back to something you said when you were talking about the ketamine experience with her, right? So would you say that, or is it fair to say that what we're trying to do is maybe maximize the neuroplasticity to help get people off of, or support people getting off of psychotropic meds.
Hmm.
Is that a fair?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a combination of the plasticity that's occurring. And, I think of it as, I think I've used this before in one of our
Mhm.
podcasts. I think of ketamine as kind of like CPR for the brain.
Mhm.
It's reawakening it and
Mhm.
reawakening in a way that says, oh, this is what it's like to experience the world in a new way, to feel through the world in a new way.
Mhm.
Oh, these are different connections I've never really understood before,
Mhm.
because we do get a softening of the ego.
Mhm.
And ketamine is really quite powerful with that. And, it's been interesting in my journey now since 2016, first starting working with ketamine, then traveling out of the country to work with plant and animal medicine because
Mhm.
I can't do that there, and watching side by side clients. And some of the research out there says that psilocybin durability is much stronger.
Mhm.
I'm actually not finding that to be true. I'm finding ketamine to be actually quite good at the durability factor of
Ah.
giving long term neuroplasticity. I think the sweet spot I'm noticing is that really I have to front load. We're doing 8 to 10 sessions in that initial window.
That's amazing. So could just I don't know that our listeners know what durability means. So could you explain it a little bit when you say durability of results? So.
Yeah, so durability is what is the length time that we're actually seeing over time? Is that neurogenesis kind of holding
Mhm.
for a period of time? Are we getting a remapping in a sense, or a long term reawakening, or is it just a short burst? Like I feel good right now because I just had this medicine, and a week later I'm kind of back down in the dumps.
Right. So durability then what you're saying is like how long does it last basically?
Mm-hmm.
So if it's durable it lasts for X number of months
Mm-hmm.
or
Yeah.
would you say is it like 6 months? Is it a year
Yeah, I would
for
say like in what I've consistently seen with clients that
Mhm.
do somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 to 10 sessions, I would say a majority of my clients are going to end up with 8 to 10. If they've been on antidepressants for more than 15 years, I
Mhm.
see 8 to 10 is usually where we're going to go. And if we do that, we might be another 6 months to a year before we might do another 1 or 2 sessions.
Wow.
And then after that, I've had variations. I've had a few clients that, had ketamine way back in 2017. We did a couple booster sessions in 2018. They're doing great today. They
Wow.
have not done any more ketamine. And then I've had clients that consistently, probably every 6 to 9 months, we might do 1 or 2 sessions.
Mhm.
And so some of that, is that environmental? Is that just something that's going on with their unique brain structures?
Mhm.
It's hard to know.
Yeah, or they have trauma or maybe they
Trauma.
have new trauma or new triggers of trauma or
Mm-hmm.
something. Yeah.
Yeah. So it really has been beautiful to watch, but consistently, you know, I've seen the clients who have been able to deprescribe successfully, they have a good community support around
Mm.
them that really has helped them in that process. They do the work to understand how to build my capacity
Mm.
to the range of emotions. They learn to have a new relationship with their emotional world, and they do things to be very supportive in their lifestyle factors. They're watching their sleep, they're doing their supplements, they're getting their exercise, they're eating a good clean diet,
Mhm.
and we see long-term results.
That's incredible. So, how would you recommend someone like talk to their prescriber if someone's listening and they've been I don't know, taking Paxil for 10 years and they really don't want to do that anymore? Like how would you recommend they talk to their therapist or their prescriber about changing that?
Yeah, so I think you first need to find out if your prescriber is open to that, because there's
Mm.
very traditional prescribers who are like, once you're on medication and you've got major depressive disorder,
Mhm.
severe or moderate, you're probably unlikely to be off of medication. So you
Mhm.
need to find out if your prescriber is even open to that, and ask them, like, what are your thoughts about me working towards slowly coming off of these medications? Can you be supportive of that? And
Mhm.
if they can't, then I think it really is finding an integrative or holistic minded psychiatrist. A naturopath also can be very supportive in these
Mhm.
things. Functional medicine doctor can be supportive, as well as finding a therapist that maybe understands that this is a possibility, and I love that, that in school we learn all these diagnoses
Mhm.
and we have this way to code it so your insurance can cover it. But Sometimes I think people get stuck in their diagnosis.
Yes.
They become their diagnosis. I
Yeah.
am depressed, rather
Right.
than I am noticing I'm having a thought
Right.
that is maybe in the depressed vein. So,
Right. Like I feel depressed rather than I
mhm,
am depressed. Yeah.
mhm,
I agree. I think diagnosing is so challenging for I don't want to say it's for clinicians. I think some clinicians really like the diagnostic process. I don't like the diagnostic process. I feel like it has way too much possibility of limiting how we see our clients.
mhm,
That if you just see in front of you that there's a client who's bipolar, like you're not looking for other
mhm,
things that might be happening, I know that in our practice we've started referring people out for like kind of subclinical bacterial infections and some parasitic infections, for example, and that's people don't think about that, but I think we've seen enough in our practice that there's way more going on in the body and the brain than science has caught up with.
mhm,
Medicine maybe specifically has caught up with.
mhm.
So to your point of talking to your prescriber, if you don't have a prescriber that's open, like, I mean, if they're in California, they can call us. If they're in Washington, they can call us. Like,
Mhm.
any do you have any other recommendations
Yeah.
like besides
Yeah.
call
Well,
us?
so I'm licensed in Oregon, Washington, Nevada, Tennessee.
Yeah.
So people can call me. I have providers that work in all of those states that I do work with.
Mhm.
Our psychiatrist team is just licensed here in California. So certainly they'd have, if they're in California, it's easy. They can work with us. I also work with many clients who will fly in
Mm.
and do a series of ketamine. I have clients that come all the way from
From Dubai,
from
right? Yeah.
Dubai,
Yeah.
and we'll come in and do some ketamine and go back home.
Yeah.
And then we give them a list to work with their prescriber and give them the supplements, and they're able to do that. So, but it really is finding a prescriber that's open to
Yeah.
doing that work. And if you get shut down, don't lose hope.
Right.
Find someone.
Yeah.
There's someone else that's out there, and it's just having that dialogue. But again, it's a thoughtful process. It's a couple different, it's that three-prong approach, really. It's the medical end, getting that support. It's the lifestyle factors, and then working with a therapist that
Mhm.
knows how to help you integrate these experiences and build your windows.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, before we kind of wrap up, is there anything that is important that we know as, kind of providers or patients that would be useful to us besides what we've already covered? Is there anything I missed?
I think it just really is, it's being open to having a dialogue and finding the right person that'll have that dialogue with
Mhm.
you, to not get discouraged or disappointed if your journey takes longer,
Mhm.
because we're all different, you know? And just because you heard someone was able to get off their medications in a year and a half, maybe even 6 months, your journey may be a little bit longer. But if you find the right provider who's willing to sit with you, work through that process, you might be able to find a new relationship with yourself, your world, and your emotions, and be able to experience things really in a clearer, different way.
And that's what we want for all of our clients, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this has been really enlightening. I'm so grateful for just the wealth of knowledge that you've brought to us. And I learned a lot because you and I talk a lot, but we haven't talked about the nitty gritty before with some of those supplements. So thank you very much. All right. Well, this has been Beyond the Woo. And if you are interested in learning more about psychedelics and all things psychology and neuroscience and geeky nerd stuff that I love, um, put some comments below. Maybe send us a note. Let us know how you're doing. Buy our books. Come to our retreats. And yeah, just be comfortable and enjoy your life. And yeah, go beyond the woo with us. And we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
If you like our show, I want to encourage you to pick up a copy of my book, Mushroom Pharmacy, as everything you're going to need to go beyond the woo. All the science, all the preparation, everything you could possibly want. It's right here in the book, Mushroom Pharmacy. Go get a copy.
So are you ready to go beyond the woo? Are you curious about your own psychedelic journey? Come join me in Mexico. Check out my next retreats at psychedelicplantmedicineretreat.com.